Hi, it's Chris. When I was at the Addictions Foundation inpatient program that I voluntarily went to because I was desperate. I was just so desperate. I was like, and thank goodness they were there for me. In part, that saved my life, you know. And there was a couple of really wonderful lessons I learned there. A couple of things that hit me really hard and connected with me really hard. And it's like when you're looking for an answer and something just hits you and you see the light, it's like, wow, is that priceless? You know, and there was a couple of points made that just hit me so hard and were so useful to me in the end. And one of them was, it was one of these motivational poster type sayings, the way it was phrased. It made a lot of people roll their eyes for some reason. I don't know. But it was basically, the lesson was, you know, a much wiser man takes the time to investigate something on his own and see what's useful to him before he dismisses it as being useless, right? As something like that. I phrased it much more eloquently. Their saying was not basically like, don't dismiss things out of hand, check them out before you no, I don't do that. I don't know, it just made me kind of realize, yeah, I had been doing that. I felt called out. I felt not, the joke, I feel personally attacked. I didn't feel personally attacked, but I was like, oh, okay, I am doing that, and I have been doing that. So if the people at the place that helps you with addictions sort of says to you that, hey, people with addictions tend to do this, and I was like, yeah, all right. Maybe they have a point. Maybe I should look at that. But then, of course, because I throw myself into ideas wholeheartedly when I buy into them, right? I made a great use of that. That was amazing for me because, I went into a lot of things and discovered lots of amazing tools and lots of wonderful, amazing help in places that also had a lot of negative attributes. But I worried about the good stuff, left the bad behind. That's the approach I took. I was like, okay, you know what? I'll check everything out once or twice. And if I can't decide right away, then it's like, at least I have enough to know that maybe that's worth checking out again, and then I can decide later, and I don't ever have to commit. No decision has to be made that this sucks and I can't be here, or this is good and I can be here. It can be like, well, some is good and some is bad, and I'll take the parts that are good and leave the rest. Why does any of that have to apply to me unless I choose to let it? So that served me amazingly well. And the other thing was just be selfish as hell. Just be selfish. That is how you can recover. You have to be extremely selfish. And on the surface, that's kind of like, I think that affronts sensibilities right off the bat, because we're not supposed to be selfish, right? We all know that. Being selfish generally is accepted to be not, a very admirable trait most of the time. So then I was told, you have to be really selfish. So I was like, okay, I'll just be incredibly selfish. But I'll dovetail that with the other lesson. I mean, if these values are true, then they should support one another. If the idea of that is true, then this should support it, right? Not only will I go and investigate the options that are available to me and the things I'm told to try and think about and do and participate in, not only will I, do that, but I'll be as selfish as hell about it. I'll go exactly on my terms, take what I want, do nothing that doesn't serve me, and go. And that was awesome for me. Like, an example of something that's had positive aspects and negative aspects that did help me. I can objectively say it helped me tremendously. Was a self-help program called AA. And I can hear the groans already, like, probably. And, but that was a requirement of me participating at the AFM. I had to go to AA. I had no choice. If I wanted to receive the services, I was required to do that. And I was resentful about it. I thought, this is kind of, let's not go into the nitty gritty, but I wasn't too pleased. But I said to myself, okay, fine. I'm taking myself to the AFM. I can at least do myself the courtesy of listening to them and trying at least once what they said and see how it goes, right? And I gave it the old college try too. I didn't just go like shuffle-footed and resentfully and like, I sort of just said, okay, if I'm going to do this, at least I owe this to try. One time, and just one or two times, just give it the old college try, see. And then there was a lot of things in the AA program that I could immediately see were like really objectionable to me. And I had very good reasons, and I can elucidate them all, but I'm not going to. Because the point was, I just said, all right, let's worry about the good aspects. Well, number one, I got people who I can openly admit around that I could drink like a madman, and they don't care. They just laugh, and we can all laugh. And it's like, what the hell? Oh my God, I've never been around this. This is insanely, amazingly, awesomely wonderful. I love this place. This is cool. It took away so much shame. Took away, But I used that. I used it selfishly. I used that freedom that environment gave me to pour my poison on the ground, get it out of my soul, my heart. I used that ability to have no shame in that place, to go to the very deep places inside of me, right? And I didn't need to worry about if anyone else wanted to hear it, as long as I kept it within reasonable parameters. But I was able to talk about my desperation and fear and self-loathing and self-hatred, and that's what I needed at the time. Now, not everybody would, but I did. And so I was like, okay, I'll keep coming as long as this is useful for me. So for the first part, I went for the community aspect. I went for the fact that I could have some people I could like just breathe and let my shoulders down, and just, if I wanted to talk, and if I didn't talk, I didn't want to talk. I talked about how I felt. I used it as free therapy. A room full of people who was going to listen to me, and then great. And it was awesome. And those people were awesome. I'm not trying to diss on any of them. That's what the whole system is supposed to be there for. And it's like hard to understand, and it's hard to do it. And that's what I did when I finally did it. I had the courage to be selfish. Right? It was wicked. Okay, so like there was a lot of aspects about, AA I did find repellent, because a lot of the things that you were asked to buy into were kind of things that were sources of trauma in my past. But I found ways to work with that to make it all work for me, right? I applied my true feelings on God to their thing. And my feeling was like, for me, Chris, God is like an antimatter or an antithesis or an opposite or an emboss of the human condition. The human condition is self-centeredness and fear and control and power and many other things. And I found something in myself where I could say that my God is a place of freedom. A place of freedom from those human tortures. Those are tortures. Those are existential tortures of a human being. We're all terrified and afraid. It's part of human. It's what we are. So for me, I said, okay, well, I'm going to bring my metaphorical God here. And that God, for my purposes in this room and for this program, is the antithesis and the letting go of the human things that propel so many bad behaviors. That's an oversimplified way of looking at it, but you know what I'm saying? It's a place I can go to where for a moment I'm not going to indulge my fear and my control, and take from that what you will. And there was times I was early member myself of AA and trying to get more into it and getting past the initial benefit of the community aspect. I was starting to become more regular and then trying to say, okay, well, let's see what this is all about and try to do the working part of it. But I'd like regularly see very desperate, hurting people coming into AA and bristling and having an incredibly visceral, like terrified reaction at the very mention of God and running out of there, So it's like yeah. Don't know where I was going with that. Sometimes a person loses their thought. But yeah, and so that was kind of one of those find a way to make it work for you moments. Take what they're saying and say, no, I'm going to just cut these parts out and replace them with mine like a mashup, and that's fine, and too bad for you. And there was some things in AA, so well, whatever. I don't want to, I don't want to rip it all apart or anything. The whole point is everything has a pro and everything has a con. Not a single thing throughout my whole, now that I reflect back on my therapy, like my whole journey, whatever, Gosh, do I say a lot. Throughout my journey, there's been like 87 things I've tried and done, and every single one of them had something amazing to give to me. And I had to leave all the other BS and there wasn't a single other thing that I bought into fully, right? Not one thing can you, so, but there's an interesting philosophical thing right there. Sometimes what we'll do is someone will present an idea to us and we'll pick out some concept that we hate and we'll say, okay, the whole thing sucks because of that. But then, like, we also intuitively know that we can enjoy things, like love the hell out of certain things and then acknowledge that they have flaws, but then we intuitively know that that doesn't mean the whole thing's bad. So we kind of have to have a counterpoint. So one negative thing seen there doesn't mean we have to write it off. Like, and I found, there was 20 maybe pivotal 20 gigantic rays of light that were part of my overall process. And each of those were pillars upon which I built huge things, And each of those came from incredibly unexpected places that I would have written off. Like I would have written off. Okay, before I threw myself in and said, okay, I'm desperate, I'm a drowning man, I'll do anything. Before I did that, I would have first of all, I wrote off even quitting drinking. I had written off AA. I'd written off medicine. I'd written off meditation. I'd written off yoga. I'd written off self-help. I'd written off AA. I'd written off therapy. I'd written off AFM. Everything, none of it was. Well, anyways, that's the long spiel. Oh, and I'm tired. Just for anybody that's like in the process of starting to like look for things that help them through whatever journey they're on. For me, in my case, it was booze, but we share a core similarity, even though details of our challenges are all unique. And so I encourage to if those two things that I learned at AFM benefited me so strongly, I hope that telling anyone else who is listening to this about them would also, would benefit. All right, good night. And thank you for listening.